Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is our friend Bobby Dixon from Austin, Texas. Bobby is a graphic designer, illustrator, typographer, and tennis shoe collector. And we covered that and a lot more in this episode. He's just one of the best graphic designers I know. His work is amazing. And, we cover his social media accounts. You're going to want to follow everything he does, him at all the places where he's on social media because his work is amazing. And he's a really smart and funny dude. So, yeah, good episode. Super nice to have Bobby back in. And, I'm sure he'll be back again sometime before too long. So if you are watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe and the little bell to get updates. Comment, share. If you are listening to the audio version, wherever it is you get that, please subscribe and give us a written review if you can, or at least a 5-star review if you think we deserve it. And you can find us at all the different social media. Anyway, whatever podcast on Twitter at AWP_podcast, because we actually have a Twitter account now that's being tended to. So that's all I got for you. I'll let you get to the episode on the other side of the jump. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is an old friend of mine from the design industry. We've been friends for about 20 years, and he is a creative director. And welcome to the show, Bobby Dixon.
Hey Mike, what's going on, bro?
How you doing, man?
We're doing good down here in Texas, man. How's it there in California?
It's hot, man. I can't have any fans on in the studio while I'm recording for audio reasons, so it just gets hot when I have to record the episodes.
Man, I can imagine, man. It's hot down here already, man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it hit us like a wave. Like out here in the valley, it was raining. It was like 70 degrees. It was 65 degrees. And then I looked at my 10-day forecast on my phone, and it was like 3 days out. It went from like 67 to fucking 90 degrees. And then and then within 4 days, it was like 97, 98.
That since this whole lockdown, to be honest, I haven't checked my weather apps or anything, so
doesn't matter.
I had no idea what it's like outside. I'll go check the mail. One day it was like 50 something. The next day it was 98.
Bobby's down in Austin, Texas,
span.
So he, Texas heat and California heat aren't all that different.
Right.
I like on the upfront before we dive too much into your work stuff. One of the things that I was just talking to my wife about a little bit was one of the benefits of actually starting to work on this podcast is that it's putting me face to face with all of my friends that I don't get to see, because being a designer and having an online presence, you just develop this group of friends that are almost all virtual friends. And you might see him here and there. And, we were lucky because we were from the gig posters time. We, hung out at Flat Socks and we got to know each other in person. But just being able to spend, actual time talking with my friends, face to face, because I work by myself in this art studio, I don't see people. And I don't really have a chance because I'm full-time freelance. I don't have a chance to travel or, take a week or two off here or there. So I don't see people as much as I want. Just being able to hang out with people like you, for an hour or two, that's been the best fucking unexpected part of this. It really has it's made me really happy to be able to do it. I have to tell you.
Dude, for an introvert to say that, that's pretty sweet. But this is like your own personal flat stock, then,
Yeah, I guess.
Because when you think about it, it's no different than that original gig posters community. I met probably 60 some odd friends within that first year, all virtual.
Yeah.
Until went to my first flat stock and then actually met these people in person, and it was kind of like a family reunion with cousins you've never met in person before. That's
right.
what it felt like.
Yeah. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah, me and Bob Plant, on the episode I do with Bob Plant, we talk a lot about gig posters in the upfront on that. And just like what an insane community that, just the amount of talent that came out of that and the amount of talent that was involved is fucking mind blowing. And that's how me and Bobby know each other, is from gig posters, making rock posters. And as a specific note to that, your Beastie Boys poster is the only rock poster hanging in my art studio that wasn't done by me.
That's an honor, bro. And it's in a frame, right?
No, hell no.
It's not in a frame? All right, good. That sucker would be expensive to
I'm a broke ass artist. I can't afford to frame shit. The only reason why the ones I have on my wall are framed is because the Grammy Museum paid to frame them for me.
Well, I mean, the honor just went down a few notches, but I'll still take it.
I do it I literally hang all of my posters the fucking flat stock backdrop way, with the fucking binder clips, tacks, binder clips.
Yes,
done.
Sir.
So I don't have to put holes in anything, and the initial idea was that I could rotate my poster collection, and then I never do that. I just like, your Beastie Boys is up, and then everything just stays. I have a couple of art prints, but rock poster wise.
Yeah, I mean, this whole time we were on lockdown, like, I've been nonstop cleaning the studio, the house. I'm going through my flat files, and I'm like, man, I've got a lot of gems in here that just never see the light of day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so I'm
crazy.
Gonna have to start doing that too. Just have like a rotation wall.
There you go. There was some discussion about because I've been slowly shuttering the goalie mask business, just because the amount of labor and overhead in it. I've been able to find other ways to replace that income stream. And so there was some talk about turning the art studio into like an apartment, like an Airbnb apartment. And now that it's become a fucking TV and audio studio, I don't know that we're actually going to do that. I think it might just turn into like, we might just have to build a set in here for the show.
Right. Coming soon to Netflix.
Yeah, well, we'll see if anybody actually fucking watches this thing. So Bobby, his main day gig is he's the creative director at Industry Print Shop in Austin, Texas. How long have you been there, and what's kind of your role there?
Just this past year, it has been 6 years, and my official title is creative director. What that means as far as my day-to-day tasks, starting when I was first hired, I did a lot of production artwork, but I told my boss, Tony Diaz, great boss, told him, like, yo, when I left my last gig at a screen print shop, I swore that industry, not industry, but that industry in whole, I swore it off. I was like, I'm never coming back to screen printing, And I was like, but I really loved the crew there. I had done work for them in other capacities. I've hired them for other things. And I was like, I'll give it a shot, but ultimately I don't want to be doing production artwork. So I transitioned into creative director. And my first goal was brand awareness. So I wanted everyone to know who Industry was. So anytime somebody needed a screen printer, we were known, not just in Austin, not just in Texas, but I wanted to be known across the nation. That slowly transitioned into services awareness, like in the middle years 3 and 4, wanted people to know what we did besides screen printing apparel, which is our bread and butter still to this day. But I wanted them to know we also do kick-ass poster printing. We did stickers and banners and et cetera. And then these past few years, we've ramped up our design services. So I'm spearheading that, and actually with the potential of having that be its own company per se, is the design side of Industry.
Yeah, that's I remember the last time I was down in Austin, we had like a little surprise party for one of our mutual friends who also works at Industry. Connor's still there, right?
No, Connor moved on like 6 months
Oh
ago
wow,
or so.
I wasn't aware of that. But yeah, I was down there, and I've actually been to the industry facility. It's really cool. You guys, how many people you guys over there now?
Well, when you came down to visit, that was our last spot.
Oh wow, you've
which
moved.
was on the east side of Austin. Now we're kind of west central. That footprint is 3 to 4 times bigger than the shop you visited.
Wow.
But we hover around, if you count the owners, Tony and Jennifer, we hover around 30 employees.
Okay. So it sounds like you've helped that company grow quite a bit in the 6 years you've been there.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of it was my experience from a previous screen print shop, what I learned there. But I mean, the owners of the industry are real good at hiring talent, promoting within, looking at the future, trying to determine the big picture ideas.
Sure. Yeah. To go backwards a little bit, you had mentioned that you guys were starting to actually have in-house design as a service to your clients, and you actually hired me to do a logo thing for, I guess about a year and a half ago. That was super fun. Right. I was like stoked. I was stoked to get to that work, because anytime I get to work with you on anything is like always like a super bonus. But that was really super fun.
Yeah, and it's great. That's one main facet of my job that I like doing, is getting other people involved and doing collaborations. Sure. Like, they may not be direct collaborations with myself, but collaborations within industry, I consider that me as well.
Sure.
So that's been fun. We get tons of clients every week that need design for their apparel.
Right.
So it makes sense to them, just do everything one-stop shop. So we started talking about it, and more clients were just coming to us. They've been so happy with the design work they get on apparel that they're like, well, why can't we approach them just for designs?
Right.
It's been like festivals have reached out to us to brand them.
Wow.
We just landed our biggest client to date as far as, financially, the billable hours, and that's just straight up design work. It has nothing to do with branded merchandise.
That's really awesome. So do you actually get to design stuff, or are you kind of like just more in the management side of it at this point?
It's very hands-on at this point, because we have our own separate art department, and that hovers around 1 to 3 artists at any one time. Right now, currently, it's 2 artists, and they're doing mostly production artwork for the shop, for our print services.
Oh, okay.
At any time, as creative director, if I need them for a project, whether it's in-house or a client, I can pull from any of those artists, and we've had some talented people working there.
Yeah.
And so my role is mostly, if it's straight up design work, it's typically just me working on it. All our in-house branded merchandise, like we have a full retail shop with T-shirts, and we even have our own skate decks and things like that, custom cut and sew pieces. 90% of that work is me. But we pull, like we said, I pull people all the time. And we've worked with some amazing people. That
must be super fun for you.
Not just yourself, but yeah.
That must be fun for you to be able to hire people that you want to work with on stuff, like that must be cool. Because I know that whenever I get the chance to do that on anything, it's always really fun. I'm usually on the other end of it. I'm usually getting pulled onto stuff by, people who have full gigs, because, my freelance, I don't. But every now and then I'll have something that, I need somebody's help with, or that somebody can add something to what I'm doing. And that's always really fun. So I'd imagine for you, that must be super gratifying.
Definitely. And I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg right now, because my list is long. Like we brought you on for a specific client look, like a client wanted something specific. And I was like, yo, it's going to take me 10 times as long to do something 10 times as worse as Mike Fisher. So I was like, let's pull him aboard. Let me find out the budget. And, a lot of these things, it does come down to the budget. Like, whether it's our own budget or our client's budget, like
sure,
I'd want to pull in all the homies if I can afford it. You know?
Right. Totally. Yeah.
And it's not just on a hookup thing. It's like, it's the talent. Like the project that you did specifically, I was like, there's no one better to do this than Mike Fish.
I mean, there's just nobody better that you knew personally to do it. I mean, I don't think I ever even posted that work, but I did like a death metal logo for a non-death metal company, and Bobby brought me in to do that. And I have enough skill at that I can say that I'm a good death metal logo artist, but there are some guys that I know that like do the ones that are like, you can't fucking read them and they still look dope. This one needed to be still readable to some extent. So we went through a bunch of different iterations to get what we wanted. And we ended up with something that was a little bit a cross between death metal and black metal. I think it really worked pretty well, but I don't think I ever posted that artwork in my portfolio. I'll have to go and take a look, because I don't like to unless I've been given permission to. But it seems like at this point it's been long enough. I could probably put it up and nobody get mad at me.
Yeah, you should be fine. Plus, I got your back on it.
Well, that's always good to know. We were just, catching up a little bit before we started rolling the camera, and we were talking about like just the technical aspects of learning something new, and learning like trial by fire, because that's what I'm kind of going through with editing right now, with creating this show. And Bobby mentioned that when he was starting in the screen printing industry years ago, that he had to learn like Adobe Illustrator that way. And what you want to expand on that? I'd love to hear some more about that.
So like what made me think of it was just, you're learning this from scratch. One thing I've always admired about you, it's like, and most of my friends in general, it's like, just because you're not in school per se doesn't mean your education stops. Like if you want to learn something, there's no barriers to learn something right now. It's like the only barrier is your own hustle. So what made me think of that was after graduating college, I had a studio art degree from the University of Texas, and I focused in screen printing, but it's all fine art screen printing, hand pulled screen print. Sure. So, I graduated and like, what's a fine artist supposed to do? And I ended up getting a job at a gallery, slash retail slash gallery, art gallery. And then a mutual friend, a friend of mine and a friend of the guy who started this screen print shop called Aztec back in the day in Austin, we were like on campus, introduced us. And he was like, yo, I need an artist. And I was like, yeah, like, let me show you my portfolio. So I bring up all my art prints. He was blown away, but it has nothing to do with commercial branded merchandise that a screen print shop does.
Right.
Nevertheless, I got the job, mostly because we got along. Like, we kicked it off immediately. We're like homies. We're pretty much the same age. And like, we're like, yeah, let's do it. That was on a Friday that I met him. He goes, can you start Monday? And I was like, damn, I probably could, yeah, let's do it. And so what I had to do that weekend was I went to Borders. Shout out to Borders, like to anyone who's been to a physical bookstore.
Things that don't exist anymore. Shout out to shit that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. And I bought the Photoshop Bible, and I bought Illustrator for Dummies. That weekend, I just read like the first few chapters just to because I didn't know how to use any of that stuff, right? And I get in Monday, and like I had to learn it. I was like, there's no excuse. Like, I can't just say no. I'd have to leave. Right. The guys in doing production, which at the time there was only one other person besides the owner.
What year are we talking about here?
We're talking about like 96, 97. Okay. I only worked at that gallery for maybe 4 to 5 months. And to be honest, it was more of a retail job than it was a gallery job. Sure. So I was over quick. But I learned enough to where I could spit separations. Mm-hmm. And then I would have to learn techniques as problems happened in production.
There you
go. Okay, colors aren't lining up. the production guy, my homie Vegas James, shout out James Bagley, was that he'd come back into my office just pissed off because for 30 minutes he's trying to line up this artwork, just simple 2-color red and black on a white t-shirt, not lining up. I was like, dude, like, I did exactly what the book told me to do. He goes, yo, you need to trap this artwork, you know? And I was like, what does that even mean, bro? I was like, what do you mean trap it? Like a mouse trap? He's like, no, he had to explain to me what a trap was. So then I would have to go into that Illustrator for Dummies book, which when they say dummies, that meant me, you know? So I would have to like look in the glossary and figure out, okay, where the trap was. And then that's how I learned. So like choking an underlay, like I had to learn how to do that. Like nobody taught me that. That's just in a book.
Right.
Between getting yelled at and having the access to the book, you know, that's like how I learned everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how a lot of us learned a lot of us that came up in the 90s. We had to learn the Adobe stuff like Photoshop and Illustrator on the job because there was no real education for it. I mean, there were those books like the Bibles and the For Dummies and stuff, but they like you kind of just, you know, made note of it. They sometimes didn't have specific knowledge to what the problem you were trying to solve at the moment, you know? And it's like, I kind of had to do the same thing. Like I when I started in the video game industry, it was like, I got a job as an illustrator just drawing stuff on paper. Like that was the gig that I got. And in the meantime, the company that I was working at, I was on contract for 6 months. So I moved down to LA from the Bay Area, and I was living with my boss like in an extra room in his apartment. And like I would all day long, I would go to work and I'd draw stuff. It was for this game that made paper toys like origami, and then we'd draw designs on these different shapes, and kids could print them out and like fold them up and make cool, like, you know, you'd make like, you know, one of those koi fish origamis. We'd draw fish graphics on it. So when it was done, it like had stuff printed on it. But so I did that all day, and then I would go home and I would sit in my room and just learn Photoshop all night long. Just like go down to this corner on Sunset Boulevard in fucking Hollywood, right. Get a fucking 12-pack of Red Dog, fucking long necks, go back to the apartment.
Red Dog.
Go back to the.
Now, like we don't even have to say the years anymore.
Just like go back to my room, like, and just sit there and just like learn how to use Photoshop all day long. And then, you know, the idea was that, you know, at the end of 6 months, if you have the knowledge and all this software, you know, we can put you on full time. And so I just went to school on it, and while I was doing that, I started doing, you know, I was like, I want to fucking make rock posters, and I want to do design album covers and like do all this stuff. And I started getting label work, and it's like, I don't know Adobe Illustrator at all, and I definitely don't know anything about creating print ready fucking files. And so I would send stuff to the labels, and they'd be like, and I'd have to like figure it out. And like, you know, that was like, yeah, you know, it was just so crazy because there was you couldn't go to school for that at that time. You know,
you had to learn how to shop. There was no YouTube, no one doing tutorials on YouTube. I mean, Photoshop didn't even have layers or history yet.
I think it had layers at that point, but it didn't have history. Like, I think I started using it in a version like 2. I think the first version I started using was the one right before layers, and then like immediately after layers show up, and I was like, whoa, that's that's a lifesaver.
I showed up to my first day on the job at that screen print shop, and I don't want to keep saying their name because they do exist still. They are competitors. But that's how competitive I get. So, but I showed up on the first day, the computer's off, right? And I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know how to turn on a Macintosh. Because we had a computer lab, a fine arts computer lab. Like, if you're a fine arts student, is the only way you could get into the computer lab. But when you went on there, the computers are all on, you know? Photoshop's already on. Illustrator was already on. The computers weren't even asleep.
Right.
So that wasn't even an aspect in my learning that, these things turn off occasionally.
Right.
And I walked in, I was like, it wasn't like a PC where they have the big ass power button. For sure, like, this is how you turn everything on. Man, like, trial by fire. You telling me you walk in the first day of work and you can't even turn on the computer? I was like, I'm so fucked.
Yeah, like a similar thing. Like, I remember, like, at the end of my first 2 weeks, they were like, okay, you need to, send an invoice to the accounting department. And I was like, how do I do that? And they're like, well, you got to do it through the email. I can't remember the name of the email software we used. It was some fucking 90s shit. And it was like Lotus Notes or some fucking thing. And so I was like, what's fucking email? Like I had come from, working construction and being a repo managed shit. And like, when I went into animation school, it was like traditional animation. I shot my shit with a camera. I had never done any real computer graphic stuff. I hadn't sent an email. I hadn't done any of that shit. So I had to figure out how to type up an invoice, how to send that invoice in an email to the accounting department. And I swear to God, I was fucking proud of myself when I got that shit done. I was like, yes, you're high tech, bro.
Some of my freelance that I still do under Collective, like it's usually the bigger the company, the more hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah.
But they're usually I'm not speaking for everyone in every occasion, but usually when you have to jump through all those hoops and it's a big enough corporate client, those are the ones that are like, we said in that 60 days on the dot, the check is there.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's like, it's when somebody doesn't say like, we need a vendor number, we need this or that. Then you're like, okay, hold on. Let's get a deposit for this gig.
Right. Well, I learned that was the goalie mask business taught me the deposit thing. Like, it's not a real job until somebody's got some money invested in it for them or for you. So I won't even touch any project until somebody's put some money on it. Unless it's somebody like Ride and High Productions who I work with, and I'm friends with Connie. And so, Connie doesn't have to pay me a fucking deposit. But I think that kind of what you just went over, you touched on your own private design stuff, which is under Collective Fusion. If you want to shout out your social media stuff on that right now so that people can follow you.
Yeah, it's Collective Fusion, and it's spelled a little differently. It's spelled with a K, but it's KLCTVE Fusion. That's Instagram. That's mostly where I post anything and everything. For short, I call it Collective. Like I tell people I could only afford one vowel. So. But I mean, people misspell it all the time, and then people ask like, why'd you choose to do that way? And I was like, yeah, if I ever wanted to trademark it, it's a lot easier than if words are spelled correctly.
Right. Right. That makes total sense. I've had a bunch of Collective Fusion swag over the years. Bobby's one of my favorite designers, and when I was rebranding my goalie mask company, I did a logo, and I just emailed him, I messaged him, and I was like, I'm going to redo my branding, and I'm just going to steal your entire fucking aesthetic. So when you see it, don't fucking trip. And he's like, oh, fuck yeah, go for it. And then so I sent out stuff to get stickers printed to Diesel Fuel Prints. And Andy sent me an email back, and he's like, oh man, this is really cool. I just love Bobby's work. I think it's awesome that you hired him to redo all your branding. And I was dying, dude. He's like, sometimes his small text doesn't really print super good. And I was like, nah, man, that is all me.
Number one, shout out to Andy. Shout out to Diesel Fuel.
Word, yeah.
Like having my back like that for one. But dude, you're like one of like a handful of people I would even like consider that as, like, yo, it's yours, like not even, I don't even want to say a handful. You're maybe like one of three people where I'm like, do it. Right. Like it's all it's all good. Your family, you know?
Yeah. It was super successful. Like, one of the fucking ridiculous curses of my design life has always been that anytime I ever tried to make merch at all with my own art or my own, company branding and stuff, maximum fluoride stuff or anything, I could never sell any of it. Like it was just it's been the strangest fucking phenomenon. But the shirts that I did for Max Flow Industries with that design, I mean, I fucking sold a shitload of those, and I was like, all right, I guess that tells me something.
How come you didn't get one of these shirts though?
What's that?
That's the question. How come I didn't get one of these shirts? That's the anyway whatever question.
Because I'm terrible at mailing things.
They sold out that fast. That's supposed to be your answer.
Yeah, well, I wish that was the answer. It's more that I'm terrible about mailing stuff. This is going to be an admission, and I hope it doesn't ruin any future merch sales that I try to do for this show. But Jeff LaChance, is an illustrator in Boston, and he ordered one. I never even sent it to him, and he mentioned it one time, and I was like, "Fuck, all right, I'm gonna do it." And then I actually got the box out, got his shirt out, and then and I still never fucking sent it.
That box is probably like under your laptop right now, like that, as your mom understands.
It's ridiculous because I keep that box easily available just in case, and I'm not fucking sending anybody anything out of that box. So if when I start doing merch for this show, I'm going to have a fulfillment company, I think, handle all of it. So I don't, nobody's fucking beholden to my terrible fucking mailing practices.
Dude, there's no worse feeling in the world than like putting something available for sale and you sell a shit ton of it. And then you're like, oh fuck, now I gotta, There's a reason why we charge shipping and handling. Like the
right.
People forget about the handling part. They're like, yo, why is shipping and handling $10 when it only costs $8 to ship? And I'm like, bro, for one, your poster tube is not free,
Right.
Like I will ship it in some rubber bands if you really want me to.
I'm still going to charge you $1 for rubber bands.
But I mean, just that people don't consider that, like, especially today, and you just click something on Amazon, it just shows up mysteriously
2 days later, and people want their shit in 2 days. It's like, I am not Amazon, man.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a one person business, bro. It's like I'm the one, organizing these posters, getting out all these orders, rolling the posters in sleeves, putting them in tubes, getting the tape, etc. You know how it works, but it's like that time adds up, man. Even if it's just one poster, that time adds up.
Yeah, that is the one thing that I don't miss about being in the poster game is that the retail side of it for me was fucking brutal. I hated having all that stock laying around, and it was like, I got to do mail at least once a week. And when my sons got a little bit older, I got to be like junior high, I could get him to come in and help me like on a Sunday if I took him to Fat Burger or something. And so that was helpful, but once I got out of the poster game, I got all the way out of the poster game, and I actually found I can't remember the name of the company, but it was a company that like had a retail location, and I just made a deal with them to take everything for like one lump sum. And because at first they're like, well, we only want this stuff. And I was like, no, you have to take the shit nobody wants. I don't even care if I have to just throw it in the box for fucking free, but I do not want it. And I can't bring myself to throw it away. So I'm just sending you everything.
Right. That's the baby and the bathwater.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to take it all. I've thought about that several times, man. I've got posters that just don't sell for crap. And I'm like, I can't get myself to just throw them away. Even if at flat stock, I'll have them available for like $10,
right?
Just like a fire sale, and they still don't sell. And I'm just like, but people love the design, they just don't buy it, Right. And I'm like, why am I sitting on a stack of these still? Eventually it's gonna happen though, because nobody's gonna buy all my back stock. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe start throwing those in as test prints, like
something.
That's how to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Something.
I mean,
they're just taking up space at this point.
Throw them in as a freebie for, anybody who orders a poster, just throw them in. That's what I started doing with stuff. Is somebody ordered one or two posters,
that's a great idea.
I would just send them like 5 pieces. Like I have all these ones that aren't selling. I just throw them in the tube, and then people are stoked because they got free shit. Which nobody's mad about free shit.
Right. And we're like, here, you throw it away.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to a topic that just occurred to me while we were talking, and I spoke about this a little bit with another guest, and when I first started doing posters, I was told by all the big name people, like, do not do posters for metal bands. Nobody wants them. Nobody buys them. People don't want a fucking poster for Repulsion. They don't want a fucking poster for, for Nile or these other death metal bands, Exhumed and shit like that. Those fans don't buy those. They just don't buy screen printed rock posters. And I was like, well, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it so that the audience for that kind of music does buy fucking screen printed rock posters. And I feel like that was probably a similar situation for you with hip hop stuff, because I don't think hip hop bands were really getting serviced by the screen printing poster industry at all either. It was all just indie rock bands. And I think you and I kind of went down the same road of, well, I don't care. I want posters for these bands, and I want to create that fucking service for this, we need to service this part of the fan base for these types of music. Does that seem like maybe I hit something there?
Definitely. Like it goes beyond us like creating a market, which is what all business owners strive to do. Like if you can create your own market, then you're going to do well. Right. But I think what you touched on, it's like you do metal posters because that's your culture. Right. That's what you love to do. And that love and that passion will show in your work. Sure. And that'll get other fans to buy the work. It's the same with me. It's like people ask, like, what determines what bands you do work for? It's like, it's bands I listen to. It's like, sure. There's the occasional like, yo, will you do a Wilco poster? I'm like, yeah, sure. I kind of get their visual aesthetic, but I've maybe listened to 2 Wilco songs.
Right.
Like, I'm not just talking 2 songs. I'm like, I've listened to Wilco songs twice in my life.
Yeah. Like, I can totally relate to that in that I end up doing a lot of merch for country music artists. And I've talked about that also before on the show. And I actively do not like country music, but I'm pretty good at doing work for country artists. There's like I mentioned Riding High Productions earlier, and she manages Connie manages country and western artists, and the stuff that she represents, she's turned me on to stuff that I actually really listen to a lot. So to say that I don't like any country is no longer true. That used to be true. She's put me on some really, really good stuff like Culture Wall and guys like that are just, I mean, it's undeniable. It's good music no matter what kind of music it is. You can just, like, talent is talent sometimes. And but like, for a while in the merch game, I was doing stuff for, the big arena country guys, and like it was brutal because I would have to listen to the music to kind of get some kind of idea where I was going.
Right.
But I would get one of the jokes of my entire career as a graphic designer is that I've submitted probably 20 shirts for Slayer and have never had one approved. And I would just get these arena country bands. I couldn't go wrong. Like I'd send 5 designs, all 5 designs go into production. And I was like, I just want to fucking shoot myself in the face.
Now, why do you think that is? You think the visual aesthetic is just like more approachable for that fan base? Like it's definitely one of those where you do kind of stereotype the visuals, right?
Right.
Like
yeah.
you like if I said, hey, I need an MMA shirt for this tournament coming up, you've already envisioned 5 ideas, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what they want.
Yeah.
You think it's a case like that, or I think deep down you're probably a country boy. That's what I
think. To be honest, if I had to speak to pick a reason for this specific thing, like Slayer, because like a band like High on Fire, like they're my favorite band, and I have no problem getting stuff approved for High on Fire, partially because I can work so closely with them on the designs that I do. And with the bigger merch companies, it's like they just give you a bunch of assets, maybe some loose ideas, like some lyrics that they want to base the designs on. And then you kind of got to go for it and just send in your submissions and hope for the best. And I think in the specific thing with Slayer is that I'm a little too close to it. And so I'm trying to give Slayer my specific idea of what I want a Slayer shirt to look like. And with like one of these country bands I don't know, I'm just giving them what I think their fan base would want. And it's a completely different thing that way. And I think that's, like you said, it's like a stereotype thing. It's like, I know what the fucking Red Cup country guys want, you know? So just based on like watching truck commercials, you know what I mean? Like, and so I think that's really what it's always been with Slayer, because they're pretty much the only band that I've had that much fucking lack of success with. And for a long time, they were my all-time favorite band. And then High on Fire kind of took over the last decade, because I think High on Fire kept putting out better material, and Slayer just kind of got stuck in the loop, in the fucking success loop. They just keep putting out the same record because they have to keep the same numbers of sales going, or whatever it is, you know. That seems to have happened to a lot of bands that I really loved that got kind of like metal bands that got big in the 2000s. Like they just went into fucking repeat mode, and I left all that shit behind. You know, and now I listen. If you walk into my studio, you're gonna hear me listening to funk music and jazz records more than you're gonna hear me listening to fucking Hatebreed records or whatever.
Dude, going back to High on Fire, like I've done like 3 posters for them, and like I have to agree with you. They're probably my favorite metal band. Like I'm a hip hop head, you know, born and true. But like listening to them, like kind of brought back that nostalgia of the 80s when metal and rap were kind of both on the come up at the same time, you know? And it was like, dude, that was my childhood growing up. It was like you listen to Slayer, but you also listen to Scarface.
Right.
And that's how I designed that. I did a Scarface poster. I was lucky enough to do a Scarface poster.
I got that one.
And I was listening to Ghetto Boys nonstop while designing it, and it was just having like immense creative block, right?
Sure.
And I was like, this is one of my favorite rappers of all time. Like, how am I not able to come up with something? And then I was like, yo, you remember back in the day when that came out? Like, you were also listening to a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, let me put on Slayer and see what happens. And so for anyone that like knows that poster,
I'll probably throw it up for the YouTube people to take a look at. Podcast people are just shit out of luck. You'll have to find it on Google Images.
Well, yeah, it's somewhere on there. I'm sure it is. But it's like next time you look at that Scarface poster, listen to Slayer. Listen to like Expendable Youth.
Right.
And then look at that poster and be like, okay, that motherfucker makes sense now. You know?
Yeah, that's genius.
And I was like, I think that besides the Beastie Boy poster, I think that was my fastest selling poster was that Scarface poster.
Yeah. The Beastie Boys poster is the one that I have up in my studio, and I absolutely love that. And then it was cool that you ended up getting to recreate that on as a mural on the side of a restaurant in Austin. I think you just recently in the last few days shared a memory of you painting that on your Facebook, and I was so stoked just to see that again. I was like, fuck, that is so rad.
Yeah, so that mural was on the side of Frank, which was my favorite restaurant at the time. I know you said you're going to interview Jeff here in the next few days.
Yeah, it was Jeff, our friend Jeff, who's also a designer, owned a restaurant called Frank in Austin. That was amazing.
Right. And it was all hot dogs and cold beer. That was their tagline. Yeah. And they started this public works, artworks program as basically the last third of the side of the building was reserved for a different artist each month to come paint a mural.
Wow. And it was like next to a parking lot, so you could really see the artwork.
Oh, yeah. You could see it. Like I had friends who worked in the office buildings across from the parking lot, and they were sending me texts of photos of us while we're painting the mural. The thing is, like, went from the start to the finish. You have to finish that mural in 48 hours tops, because that was what the budget called for. Because you have to think about it, like that space probably took up 4 or 5 parking spaces. Yeah, so you're paying the lot. You're paying the lot to use 4 to 5 parking spaces for 2 days. You're paying to have the scaffolding. They like, since then they had used scissor lifts, so I imagine that budget went up higher. Not for my mural. We were climbing up and down scaffolding like chumps. But like there were some heavy hitters that got to paint murals there. Jay Ryan, Jeremy Fish, Morning Breath. That's just to name a few. Like
Brian
amazing.
Phillips got a piece up there. I love Brian's work. Brian,
shout out to Foon Daddy.
Shout out to Phillips. Okay, thanks. Bye. So one of the things on this show that I really like to talk about is creative people's other endeavors that are outside of what they normally are known for. And what is some of the things that you do in your spare time that are creative that aren't necessarily directly related to what you do at your day job?
I would say my biggest pastime hobby right now, it has been for probably the past decade, has been cycling, like road cycling. Like the actual pursuit of that is not very creative, but
no, it is. I consider it to be.
I tied in. Yeah. Well, me being a creative, like I found a way to bring my work into the sport, which is by designing the jerseys and the kits. And it's not like basketball where you need a basketball, you need some shoes. That's about it. You can go hoop,
Yeah.
Which basketball is still, it's my favorite sport above cycling. It's just I do cycling more than basketball.
Sure.
Whereas cycling, compared to basketball, you have to have a bike. And
right.
Then when you get in serious, like I am, like you have to have the clothing. They call it kits, the jersey and the fruit suit is what
I like that.
But then you have to have the helmet, you have to have the shoes, you have to have the pedals, et cetera, et cetera. The list just keeps growing. And I'm like, good Lord, how much money am I spending on this hobby? Like I'm using it to de-stress, and I'm stressing out because of how much money I'm paying. And I'm like, I started looking and I was like, well, one of the biggest.
Well, Bubba, the Basset Hound's making his cruise through every now and then when I'm recording. I don't want to keep him out of here. And one of the things about the show I like is that I want it to always be like kind of conversational, like people are hanging out. So he's making his way through. So if anybody hears anything, it's Bubba the Basset Hound, the studio dog, making sure I'm still here.
Shout out to Bubba.
But to what you were saying is, I absolutely remember seeing you post the jerseys and stuff, and those things are always like super fucking cool, man. I'm like, fuck, what a cool extra thing you get to do to add to your hobby and your pastime. And I get a little bit of the same of that as that, because I've been designing jerseys for anytime I change hockey teams. I talk them into letting me change the uniform, and like literally just got a picture from my new captain. I started on a new team 2 seasons ago, and right before the lockdown, we had ordered new jerseys, and they came, and I'll send a
nice.
I'll probably actually throw a picture of it up right now for the YouTube viewers. But yeah, it's like, I get it. I totally get where you're at with that. And you want to talk about expensive fucking gear? Try being an ice hockey goalie.
You're probably and not only that, you're the most expensive hockey player. Like you're a goalie.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like what you're saying. You did it for your team, which is originally how I started designing jerseys. Was like, you look into it, and we've talked about this before. Don't pay retail, pay wholesale, get you a wholesale account, right? So I was looking into like, how can I get jerseys for my team for this charity ride? Like I did a charity ride in honor of my dad's passing, and I was like,
that's awesome.
Like some of these companies are only charging like a dozen piece minimums. I was like, that's ridiculous. So I was like, I'm just going to do that. And that turned into, well, people that weren't on the team, that couldn't join, that couldn't do the charity ride, still wanted those jerseys.
Right.
And I was like, I don't play hockey. I can barely ice skate. Like, and that's forwards.
Bubba just came back.
And yeah, we start talking about sports, and Bubba comes in. But it's like your hockey jerseys, like, yo, I want one of those jerseys, you know?
Yeah, I've actually 3 of the last 4 teams that I've done it for, I've offered the jerseys if anybody wanted to order one. And yeah, I end up selling. We end up usually doubling the order to the jersey company because I can sell almost as many as we're ordering, you know. And I just put like a little premium on top to help to deflate the cost for the team, because, you know, we're doing a little bit of a service to the retail people who want to buy, and so they get a tiny, you know, no, I'm not making any money on it. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But yeah, it's like that same. I saw the exact same thing happen, like with the Creeps jerseys that I did, and my new team, the Thrashers, I did a jersey, and a bunch of people were like, "Fuck, I totally want one of those." And
dude, those turned out so great.
One of the things that's come out of that too is, and it's related to the goalie mask business, is I had customers that I'm, you know, associated with on Facebook see the jerseys that I've made for my teams that I play on, and I started getting work designing jerseys for other teams that I don't play on and I don't know. And it's been like this little additional piece of business I've been doing it, and it's super fun. I really like it. I'm not even a jock or anything. I don't really care about sports, but researching, you know, uniform graphics and designs it's been pretty fun to do that stuff.
Yeah. If there's one thing that there's a lot of bad design on, it's cycling jerseys. So a lot of these companies get wise to like, yo, why don't you hire an actual designer to do your corporate, you know, jerseys? Like, that's what happened with South by Southwest. One of the guys that works there is an avid cyclist. This was a few years back, and we were friends, and he was like, I want you to design our South by Southwest cycling jersey. And it was only for employees. And he was like, we don't want, you know, the all colorful, in your face, like a NASCAR jersey, cycling jerseys that you see on the road. We want your aesthetic. And, you know, it's like I was saying, like, you can put it out there for the fans, you know. It's just like what you were saying with doing metal posters. It's like you got to put out what, you know, real metal fans are going to like.
Sure.
So I'm going to put out cycling designs for this section of cyclists that like a certain aesthetic.
Right. And maybe you get other people to wake up a little bit to it. And like people who never considered that cycling uniforms could be something other than, you know, the traditional thing, and see something different. And they're like, oh, wow, like that's super cool. I think that has to have happened at some level.
Right.
You know?
And then also like, and I'm backtracking a bit, but with the whole cycling, like designing your own kit, it's not only is it cheaper, you have to take the risk, first of all. Like you're taking a risk that people are going to buy these or not, which if you're not going to take the risk on your own work, don't expect anybody else to, you know? So just jump in there and do it first and foremost. But number 2, it's like, not only is it cheaper to produce piece by piece in the long run, but when you're wearing that kit, you're not representing Pearl Izumi or Shimano or any of these big corporations, cycling corporations that you just paid 3 times the amount for their jersey.
Right.
Like, no, if I'm going to pay for a jersey, I want my shit on the jersey.
Right.
You know?
Dude, totally.
Like, why am
I
paying a company to represent that company, you know?
Right.
Well, I guess that's what they're doing for me. So I'm not hating on it, you know, 100%.
Yeah, considering we're in the merchandising business, Bobby, I'm not sure. I'm not sure being mad about it makes a lot of sense, but you know.
Well, that's you know. So if anyone has a company out there, like, what I'm trying to say is hire a designer to design your merch. Right,
dude, totally. That's funny. I know one of the other things that you're like pretty passionate about is like sneakers. You're part of that sneaker culture.
Oh yeah.
Are you primarily Nike guy? Is that like your brand of choice, or do you stray off into other stuff?
By a long shot, for sure. I'm a Nike head first and foremost, because that's like growing up. I say when the Jordan 1 came out, first original Jordan 1, which I was still such a little kid that I had to wear the Sky Jordans. I wasn't even Air Jordan, right?
Right.
That was the first time, not just sneaker culture, but any kind of culture where I was like, yo, what is hype? You know, like, why is, like, I noticed it. It's like everyone's going crazy over these. And it was like, you know, since that point on, like, I was always a Nike head. Their advertisements, their merch, everything was always on point with them. They never slipped. Adidas would probably be number 2, and that's mostly because of hip hop culture. It's not even their sport culture.
Right.
But I've dabbled. Like, if there's a hot shoe out there, it doesn't matter to me what it is. Like, I'll rock Asics. Like, if
yeah,
it's a decent pair of Asics, right?
Sure.
But Jordan, that whole original campaign with Jordan and going into the Jordan, everyone skips the 2s because the 2s were garbage. But 3, 4, and 5, like, that was like the heyday of Jordan, not only as a sneaker but as a culture,
just like as a brand. You know,
yeah.
It became such a huch brand, like its own brand, as big as Nike. You know that,
right.
Which is fucking crazy. When a licensed entity becomes as big as the company that licensed it, that's fucking notable, man.
They'll be the first to like admit like Jordan made that company what it is today.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah, for sure. I know for me, I'm not a sneaker guy. So the ones are like the black and red ones.
Yeah, that's the original colorway. Yeah.
So those I wore like a motherfucker in the 80s because they were the best skate shoe available at the time.
Shoe.
They were better than any other skate shoe. And so I wore them a lot. And they also, you know, I was like into thrash metal, and like, so we all wore big puffy fucking sneakers anyway with our peg jeans. And so, yeah, I went through a lot of pairs of the Jordan 1s, but even more than that, there was I always call them the Terminators, because the character, I can't remember the name of the fucking character in the movie, John Connor's father, the one who travels into time to save Sarah Connor, is wearing like a pair of Nikes that are essentially the exact same design as the Jordan 1s, but they were canvas. And they had like a strap along the, they were like black and silver. And I figured out that those performed exactly the same as the Jordan 1s. And they were like way fucking cheaper. And so I just would like load up, like I'd get my paycheck from the ice rink that I worked at, and I'd just like go buy like 3 or 4 pairs of those, so I could have like 6 months worth of skate shoes. and it was like, I just figured out the budget way to do it.
Dude, you're right though. Like, that's everyone. Like, I was already into basketball, but like everyone skated in Jordan 1s. That was the intro. I think that was part of the reason that made it as big as it did, was because it crossed platforms. Sure. It wasn't just like, it became something people wore to class, you know?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I think that's probably right.
It's funny you bring up the peg jeans, like how that made a comeback in the past like 3-4 years. Like
the last decade, really, that fucking 80s thrash metal look with the flip brim, the taco holder fucking baseball hat and shit.
Right.
You know, I think that for me, I'm way more of an Adidas guy. Over the last like probably decade, I pretty much just wear the old school fucking Reeboks, like just the old school original Reebok running shoe style, you know, fucking half canvas, half fucking, you know, suede.
The ballistic nylon joints.
Yeah. I either those from Reebok or New Balance, although I've kind of just moved straight to Reebok at this point. And I actually started wearing those because I never really liked running shoe style shoes as like a skater. I could never skate in them, so there was no reason for me to ever own them. But when I started touring with my last band, I found that I needed a pair of shoes that were inexpensive and that I could like just wear for a month and wouldn't murder my feet. And I could just get home and chuck them, you know, because they would cost me $60 or $50. So I started wearing those Reeboks on tours. And I know I was always referred to them as tour shoes. And then there was when I lived in Echo Park, there was a homeless guy at the end of my street. There was a lot of homeless people at the end of my street, but one guy in particular was about my size. And so when I get home from tour, I'd just take everything I was going to throw away, and I would just take it down and leave it for him. And he was always out. Like next day I'd see him wearing my tour shoes. And this dude has no idea like that he was in shoes that stepped on, festival stages, in the Czech Republic and like, all these crazy
those
places.
Have seen the world.
Yeah. Like I always got like a special little chuckle out of that when I would see him, walking around in a pair of Reeboks that I'd left out for him. But he was always very thankful that I was willing to do that. And it was like, it was an easy one for me. I was just going to throw them away anyway, but.
So like in the sneakerhead culture, like those shoes, you would call those your dailies.
Sure.
Like those are the ones you rock daily, and, the good thing about the dailies is one, it keeps your more high profile stuff like on ice. So you're not ruining them.
Right.
But even better is like the ones that you just gave to the homeless dude down the street, you can go to the store right now and find those again on the shelf for the same price.
Right.
Right. Where some of the coveted sneakers, like, yo, if you miss out on these, like you're waiting at least 5 years for these to get retroed.
Right.
If they get retroed,
Yeah. My wife has been inadvertently getting into this sneaker culture because when she's on movie sets or TV sets, she has to have like super comfortable shoes because she stands around all day. And she bought some Nikes that were, I wish I could remember what they were. While I'm editing, I'll find the picture of the ones then. They were like super special edition. She got them in 2 different colorways. And I was like laughing at her because they were fucking expensive. But,
right.
she wanted a cool pair of shoes that had a little flair to them. But for me, the shoe that replaced, to go back a little bit, the shoe that replaced the Jordan and the Terminators for me were the Adidas Ewings, because the Beastie Boys wore them, first of all. And then second of all, you could skate in them the way you could the Jordans. And I saw recently that Adidas has a shoe like that back out. And I'm like so tempted to order a pair. I'm not sure why I'd ever wear them. But then when I went to click on it, they have a Keith Haring edition of those. And I'm like, and so I got bit. I got bit by the bug the way that any sneaker person does. Is I was like, I'm gonna get those and just put them in. I'm gonna put the box up on my toy shelf because I just want the Keith Haring edition.
Right.
So I get it.
And props to Adidas because they've always been on that culture tip, like because they knew they couldn't outperform Nike on like a performance side.
Sure.
Not saying they're garbage, like they compete for sure, but there's a reason why they gave Run DMC an endorsement as opposed to trying to go after these basketball athletes. Right. And you see how that works out for them, and they're carrying on with that culture. So that's been awesome to see.
Yeah, back in the day when they did that Run DMC deal, I actually had one of those sweatshirts that were like $130 in like 1988, which was like a lot of fucking money.
Right.
And it was funny because I was like, I was like in like a crossover thrash band, and I had fucking long hair, and I was wearing my fucking Ewings and my fucking pegged 501s and with my fucking Run DMC sweatshirt. totally made out of like 5 different fucking genres of music.
But you know what? That was your style, man. You represented, Well,
that was kind of the style, right? Because that was like when Anthrax and Public Enemy were, covering each other's songs. And, yeah. It was all during that like late 80s, early 90s time. So not that far off, but.
It's amazing how some of those collaborations actually work. Right. On a musical level. Like there's the pop crossover like Run DMC and Aerosmith, which, take it as it is. It's not,
Yes, yeah.
Like for the masses, yes, they love it.
That one hasn't aged that well though.
It was Public Enemy and Anthrax, right? It was Bring the Noise.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's the jam. If there's any time like you were needing to get up, like need to hype yourself up to go do something, whether it's mow the lawn or just get out of bed or whatever. It's like you throw that on, and that like, you took too much melatonin if that doesn't get you up,
Right, dude. Totally, yeah. In another episode, me and my brother-in-law talk about going to see a show on that tour and how fucking cool it was. Is there anything else that you want to cover, in your personal projects or anything like that before we head on the outs?
Yeah, so I've always, been a print designer focusing on merch, whether that's posters or apparel or whatever. But, since middle school, like I've dug up a bunch of old drawings I had done that I'm going to start posting on Instagram. And I've already started, like just corny ass drawings, but there's some gems in there too. And they all have one thing in common is like, I've always been a hand letterer, typography dude. Like it's part of it's like a graffiti background, but other parts it's like, when you were sitting there in biology class and not paying attention and scribbling in your notebook or in your book, a lot of people are drawing like the Super S, the Stussy S or whatever.
Right.
They're drawing portraits or palm trees or whatever.
Fucking Eddie from Iron Maiden.
Right. I was always drawing letters. Like how many different ways can I draw an A? And that would be what my sketches were, And so that being said, like probably 2014 or so, I started getting back into hand lettering.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to just be some throwaway thing. I wanted to see like my progression and how it grew. And I started doing it because I had been on the computer all day, like 7 days a week. You're on a computer designing, you're staring at a screen, you're using all, one of 20,000 fonts you have installed on your computer.
Yep.
And I was like, I need to get away from just direct light into my face, and that was a way for me to unwind, to basically practice a new skill again, but also just to like decompress. And I started doing all these letterings that you see that I post in my Moleskine.
Right. Yeah. That people are going to want to follow his Instagram account because he posts these hand-drawn, hand-lettered pieces in his sketchbook all the time, and they're fucking amazing. They're super, super cool, and it's go out of your way to follow Bobby on Instagram. Give that Instagram account one more time.
It's a Collective Fusion. That's KLCTVE Fusion on Instagram.
Yeah, follow that because it's the lettering stuff on there is super amazing. A quick aside in regards to the show is you are now the second guest that has mentioned the same thing. Like, yeah, I've been going through my old drawings and it's just cool. Like this seems to be something that people are talking about, and maybe I'll start making it part of the conversation a little bit more. Cause I think that's fascinating. And I'm not sure if it's, when you get to a certain stage in your career or when you get to a certain stage in your life as a person where you want to go back and look at where you started or where you came from and where you've gotten to now. But that seems to be something that it keeps popping up. And I'm like excited that actually, I'm really excited that you brought that up because I think that's fucking cool. And it kind of plays to a conversation that I had where like, at some point I'm going to have to fucking do a book of my stuff. And I will absolutely want to include some of my rudimentary startings,
Would you say you have a bunch of your old stuff? Like how far going back?
Oh, I have.
Like, are we talking grade school?
Junior high. Yeah, I have stuff. There may be stuff at my parents' house that goes back further than that, but I know in my own stash I have stuff from like, probably 83, when I was first starting to learn, like try to draw punk rock stuff and learn how to draw skulls and stuff. I have a bunch of that stuff. It's terrible.
Going back, we're talking about me being a Nike head. Like 5 of these drawings I dug up are all just me doing like my own Nike drawings of things. Like I'll be sure to post those here in the future.
I think I saw one that you did that was like these little basketball playing dudes. Like was it the letter B?
So it was so everyone's affinity for Michael Jordan back in the day. I was like, I'm doing Michael Borden. So it was Michael Jordan as a milk jug, as a Borden milk.
That's what it is.
And what I would do is I would draw him in all his famous slam dunk poses.
God, I'm gonna I'm going to have you send me that, and I'm going to put it up for the YouTube viewers to check out, because it's fucking awesome. And it's got a cool like graffiti style, and it's like super cartoony. And when I was first looking at it, it almost looked to me like animation keyframes.
Yeah,
like,
because they're all drawn on the same sheet. Like I didn't do one pose on one sheet. They were all done on the same sheet. But yeah, like that's just the tip of the iceberg of the stuff I found. First of all, I was surprised I even kept these things, because it was up to me to keep them. Like these were things I was drawing when I should have been studying. So it's not like my parents kept them. Like my mom would have whooped my ass if she knew what I was drawing in biology class. So I kept them myself, and the fact that I still have them, like I'm like, why? Where were these this whole time? Like it's pretty amazing. But I posted those recently because of the Chicago Bulls documentary that's on ESPN right now. So I was like, like, let me post these because it's relevant to what's happening right now. But it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it's funny that whole Jordan phenomenon where, like, I'm not a jock at all, like, and I don't follow sports really at all. But even during that time period, I watched basketball because Michael Jordan was such a thing. I named my fucking middle kid Jordan. For fuck's sake. You know what I mean? I named my first kid after the singer of Minor Threat, and I named my second kid after a fucking basketball player for a sport that I don't even fucking give a shit about. That's how big a fucking star he was at the time, which is fucking madness.
It's undeniable. Like, yeah.
Dude, totally. That's fucking awesome. I'm glad that you brought that up. I really want everybody to go follow Bobby's fucking Instagram stuff. He posts so much great stuff. Are you posting those old drawings on your Instagram or just on your Facebook?
I'm starting to, yeah.
Okay,
so
go look for that stuff because it's really
little by
cool
little.
stuff.
I used to try to post daily, like on the actual post, like but I was like, man, this is just getting kind of tedious. So I've been spacing them out, like every other day or so.
Yeah,
but they're coming up.
Yeah, just that whole thing. That's like a whole nother part of being a designer and an artist now, is that you have to know how to use social media to get your work in front of people. And it's like, it's its own job sometimes. And like with this podcast, it's like I have my personal Maximum Fluoride Instagram account, and then I have the Anyway Whatever podcast Instagram account, and I have to drop one thing a day. The way the Instagram algorithm works is it cares how you do it. Like if you put too much, it doesn't like it. And if you don't put enough, it won't help you make people care. So like, it's like recommended like once a day. So I try to stay true to doing it once a day, but it's just another part of what I got to do every day. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
It's definitely another tool in the box, but it's just, it's one of the more important tools.
Yeah, it is now. If you want to stay working as an illustrator and designer in this day and age, you have to have a social media presence. Like you just have to, because there's a million kids out there, especially for people who like us who have been around for a while. There's all these kids out there that are getting work just off of Instagram. It's fucking crazy. And I'm totally fine with all that. I'm not one of those curmudgeonly old people who's like, I don't like this new shit. Like I want it how it used to be. I'm totally fine with adapting to the new ways. And I think that everything has value. And even if it's a little bit of a chore sometimes, the amount of free advertising that you're getting is you could have never ever gotten that at any other time in your life. And so to not take advantage of that is fucking crazy, because I see people on Facebook, like bands and artists and stuff, who are like, angry that their Facebook wants to charge them to promote their posts to their fans. And I'm like, where the fuck on earth are you going to ever get free advertising? Like you get it for free. If you want it to be better, you can pay for it, but they're not charging you to have a Facebook page. So just like fucking calm down a little bit, pump the brakes a little bit. And so, I know for me, for sure, that's like, that's like, I just try to embrace new stuff as it comes along, because I'm interested in it. And, I don't want to be a complainerly old person, about shit. I spent my fucking 30s being a fucking online complainer, as as most people know me by, and I gave that shit up.
As long as the tradition of Hatemas continues, like, I'm good. You know, be happy, Mike Fisher, the rest of the year. Just as long as Hatemas sticks around. You know.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not sure that's going anywhere. my dislike for all holidays and Christmas in particular bore the tradition of Hatemas, where every year I complain about how much I fucking hate the holidays. But again, even with that, like, as I've gotten older, I'm like, this is like a good time for me to hang out with my family. And like, you know, I have way less obligation to it. About 10 years ago, I just decided to, I was never going to celebrate any fucking holidays at all if I didn't have to. And, you know, I do Thanksgiving with my family. Me and Christy do Thanksgiving with my family, which ends up being like with my sister and her husband and kids and my kids and everybody. And then we go to Washington and we do Christmas with her family. And I really do enjoy celebrating in that limited capacity, but that's it. Like, I'll do 4th of July cookout because it gives me a chance to barbecue some shit. But other than that, like, I haven't put up a Christmas decoration inside of my house in a fucking decade. I don't even own any decorations for any holiday at all. You know, and luckily I married someone who is totally cool with that. So we don't have to have a Christmas tree or none of that shit. But I think grandkids are coming sooner than later, and I think I'm gonna fucking. I think
it's have to be that grandpa.
I know. I don't want to do it.
It's inevitable.
I don't want to be involved in any of that shit.
But you know that, like, you have a point. It's like it's about the friends and family. You know? Especially on my side, like my cousins now are all like. I've got some nephews and nieces that are in college now, and I'm just like, when did that happen? You know,
right?
But now that, like, the families are just big, and it's like, you know, I'm sure people are gonna have like their own kind of holiday once this pandemic shit is over. You know, Like, can you imagine that could even become a holiday? Like
Pandemic Day.
Yeah. Like, what happens? Nothing really happens in August, right? It's like, I could see like there being a holiday in August that's something like this. Like,
the thing that
when it's safe to actually go out, like, I'm gonna try to visit as many people as possible. You know, like, support as many local businesses that I can.
That actually reminds me of like during all of this when the stimulus stuff got passed and they started sending out those checks, those $1,200 checks, and people were like super excited about it, and it reminded me of that Bone Thugs First of the Month song, and I was like, oh, we got a new thing to fucking have an anthem about. We got the stimulus check raps coming.
The stimulus check. Man, crazy times.
It is crazy times, but. All right, man, I'm going to fucking get you off this phone and let you go live your life. Say hi to your wife for me. Tell her that I miss her. And if we ever do get out of quarantine, we owe everybody in Texas a trip down there, and we'll make that trip.
Definitely, for sure. We need to get back out there as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I love visiting LA. I can't say the same about Lisa.
She's not into it.
She'll go to come see y'all, you know, like, she'll definitely come to see y'all. So there's that side of it.
Tell her I'll find her some place to eat where she ain't never ate before that she'll be happy about.
Yeah, we're always down for that. We go Philippe's. Like, we need to meet up there again.
Yeah, well, we don't live out there no more, so
we'll have to get your ass to drive out one of these days now.
I don't know.
Once every 5 years, you can leave your neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. No, I'm just kidding. Anything for you guys.
Cool.
All right, Bobby. It's good talking to you, and I'll have you back on for sure, and we'll talk again very soon.
All right, bro.
Thanks.